Tell It Like It Is Tuesday on the Buddy Martin Show. We're joined by our friends David Whitley and Rob Browne from the Gainesville Sun and SEC Sideline, and special guest Kyle Nash from the Black and Gold Banterrette to talk a little UCF, Florida, and among other things. Is Lane Kiffin still the guy for Florida after a loss to Kentucky? And will this be the last game of the Napier area? All that and more on this edition of the Buddy Martin Show. Hit that like and subscribe button.
For Buddy Martin, call him up and tell him what you're thinking, but be kind because he's doing the best he can.
Better, stronger, faster.
Mama says that alligators are ornery because they got all them teeth but no toothbrush.
What if the voice calls while you're gone?
Take a message.
Bye!
You ready, champ?
I'm ready for this my whole life.
I'm incapable of small talk. But that's why you love me, right?
Kind of intimidating to be in the presence of so many great athletes.
Good evening. Welcome to Tell It Like It Is Tuesday with your host, Loren Meadows, on the Buddy Martin Show. Tonight, we're joined by some good friends, David Whitley from the Gainesville Sun and Rob Browne from SEC Sidelines. And tonight, we're also going to be joined by a special guest, Kyle Nash from the Black and Gold Banterrette. We'll talk a little UCF, UF, University of Florida football, big game this weekend coming off the bye week. And just basically talk about where the Gators are at this point. What did they bring back with them from the bye week, and just a lot of other happenings in college football. You know, Lane Kiffin went down at Ole Miss this weekend. So is he still the guy for Florida? Are the fickle fans going to look elsewhere, or where do we go after this? But we say good evening to both David Whitley and Rob Browne. How you guys doing?
Good, buddy. Well, you're not buddy.
Man,
wearing a wig.
Yeah. So before we get started, we just want to send out our thoughts and prayers to everybody affected by the hurricane. Pretty much, we had some damage here and at our stead, and I know a lot of other people. David, you just got your power back, I think, last night, and different things like that. Rob, you guys didn't get into that, did you? You a little too far west, right?
We just had a bunch of rain up here, but we did have Coach Ellis Johnson on Monday, and he's over in South Carolina. They got hammered, and he said the best place to send over there is to the Red Cross. But, yeah, very, very lucky, he said, that they didn't lose their house.
Right. Well, there were even people, I think, as far north as, basically Indianapolis even, that I-70 corridor even got the effects of it. I know some people in my former neck of the woods had some trees down and things like that. So it she really brought the pain, and we're really just, glad we get to talk a little football, talk a little sports, and, maybe
just sharing
a little bit more.
Everybody, another one brewing out there.
Yeah.
So I'm not being the weather person here.
Right. Well, I got, and it's funny, you got to go
brewing over it here.
Me being a Midwesterner, I kind of had to learn the hard way. So the next day I went out and got me a chainsaw and the generator. I got to get my stuff together. So I'm ready for it the next time. But we were lucky, had a little damage, but everything.
You got to come on down to Brendo's, dude. You got to come to Brendo's. By the way, everyone calls me Brendo, so it's like you got to come to Brendo's. I'll take care of you down here. You got sandwiches, whatever you need, generators.
Yeah, we got it. So appreciate it. But so, gentlemen, David, you were at the press conference on Monday, correct?
I was.
And got to hear from Coach Napier. You know, it's funny, and I want to go out and say this because I think I've been the hardest on Coach Napier maybe for quite some time. And one of the things that's bothered me outside of Brenden, there you go, is maybe the what I guess I could term it, and you guys could give me the journalistic term, the robotic nature of a Billy Napier press conference. And I had the opportunity to go to the Central Florida Colorado game this past weekend. And, obviously Deion brings the stars out. You had everybody from Cam Newton to Brandon Marshall to Terrell Owens to Devin Hester to Michael Irvin, all down on the sideline, things like that. So that was kind of cool. But one of the most enlightening moments I had is I probably should have went to the Gus Malzahn press conference, since that's who Florida plays this week. But I went to Deion Sanders' press conference, and this kind of segue to where we go, Mr. Whitley. But I found Coach Prime, as he likes to be called, to be quite genuine and down to earth in a lot of ways. And what I mean by that is a lot more engaging than I think what we're used to here in Gainesville. He was very giving of himself personally, and the answers didn't seem rehearsed, so to speak. It was almost spontaneous, and I found myself liking Deion. Always a fan as a player, but found myself liking him more as a coach when I left, and was like, when you really look at it, his kids don't get in trouble. They kind of walk a straight line. He's got a friend of mine, her son's the nose tackle. He's an Ivy League graduate that transferred to Colorado. And the only reason he transferred to Colorado, transferred at all, is the Ivy League doesn't let you have fifth-year seniors. So, he spent the last 2 seasons at Colorado, and so I think he's doing it the right way. But some of his answers, I was like, okay, yeah, there you go. Yeah, I get it. And he was very engaging with one of the student reporters who's in a wheelchair, and he kind of expressed, the things he had gone through with losing the toes and some of that stuff, which, no matter what you feel about Deion, could have killed him. So, you have that. And then we get to Monday's press conference, which I'll say probably I had some trees down and things like that. So that's going to be my excuse for not going. And we're going to leave it at that. But I probably chose not to attend for a lot of different reasons. But one is that you just consistently get the same thing. And, it just seems like no matter what, whether it's a bye week off of a big win or, a gut-wrenching loss, it just seems to be like status quo with the Florida Gators.
Well, in a way, it's not fair to compare anybody to Deion when it comes to press conferences, because trust me, I've been doing Deion press conferences since he was a freshman at Florida State, happened to be covering the Seminoles back then. And, it's always been, you bring your bag of popcorn with you, because, he is an entertainer. And you're right. he is, it's genuine. I would say that, he has been the best friend of sports writers for the last 40 years, just because of the amount of content he's provided. Because love him or hate him, he gives you a lot to write about, and people want to read it, or if you're in broadcast, people want to talk about it. So, I think every sports writer should at least maybe once a week, stop and bow 3 times to Boulder real fast,
right.
A la Mecca. That said, you're right. He's Billy. I think it's not that he's not genuine. He is that way. He is just a sort of methodical, thoughtful, robotics, a good way to put it. Just that's just the way that's his personality. And you see that, reflected. Basically, coaches are who they are. You go to Gus Malzahn, it's a little looser, but he's going to be Gus. You want them to be that way. Billy, he comes off his guard. I think he's just that way. I think if they were 12-0 and winning the national championship, he would be up there. He's not a kind of guy whose pulse ever seems to get above 45. That's just the way he is. And you wish he won that. You wish he was Spurrier, but I was harking back to I call it the golden era of Florida sports, when Spurrier was in Gainesville and Bowden was in Tallahassee. You just turn on your tape recorder and say go, and you'd have more stuff in 5 minutes than you get in an hour now from coaches. And I blame like a lot of things. I blame it all on a lot on Nick Saban because he sort of got people into the straight laced, whole sort of meet the press type mode where you ask him something and it's more of an adversarial thing. Well, it's not really adversarial with Billy, but a lot of coach speak there. But again, that is Nick Saban. You've seen him often, and he's loosened up a little bit with the ads and stuff like that. But I mean, nobody ever came away saying, "Hey, God, had a great time with Nick the other night." Whatever. Billy's press conference was a reflection of Billy R. And it'd be Billy whether he was 4-0 right now or 0-4.
So my question is, Rob. I mean, and I agree, Mr. Whitley. It seems to be par for the course with Coach Napier. But then you look back and you say, well, people talk about what a great recruiter he is and how good he is in that stead. So is it that, behind the scenes or in recruiting, have you seen guys that were kind of one way with the media, and maybe Saban was that way as well because he did so well recruiting? What is it? Is there a switch that Napier turns on or in recruiting, but then doesn't manifest it to the pressers or outwardly even to the fans for that matter?
Well, I mean, Billy Napier is a Stoic. The Stoics, the school of Stoicism was a Hellenistic philosophy in ancient Greece and ancient Rome. That's what he is at the press conference. But with recruits, yeah, he's like a lot of people that are one way in public and then they're completely like Lane Kiffin. You see him in public, he's this bigger than life personality. As soon as he walks off the stage, he's introverted. I mean, people in Oxford, I've got friends that are major donors. And at most schools, they'd be able to call and let's go to dinner, and he's going to go. He doesn't do that. He would rather be by himself or with his family on a boat somewhere. Billy Napier, I don't know how he does it in recruiting because he's like an actuary in an insurance company. That's what it's like when you see him at a press conference. And if you've ever been around actuaries or CPAs or engineers, they're not boring people. They're not. They just get excited about boring things. That's not my quote, but I read that. I don't know how Billy Napier does so well in recruiting. I really don't. And I like what David said about Deion. Deion's one of these guys, when I was in college, he was in college. And you talk to so many. David, if you sat down and interviewed him, correct?
Oh,
many times.
Back in the day, many times.
Okay. I mean, you can't hate the guy. I mean, if Loren says he's genuine, I mean, when you ask him a question, but I wonder what he's like, but he says he doesn't go to living rooms to recruit. But Billy Napier's obviously got two personalities. Because, I mean, do you ever hear, any of y'all ever hear that his players don't love him?
No.
See?
I don't think that it's a Jekyll Hyde thing. I think, he is, I doubt he's up there being the used car salesman to recruits either. He's probably just spelling out, matter of fact, hey, we'd love to have you here. Kid. Show him around. I don't think he's glad handing him, hey, buddy, kind of thing. And
I don't either.
Yeah. I mean, he tells them what they want to hear and sometimes not what they want to hear because, they're not coming here right now. Well, but that's a different story why they're not coming here right now because they don't know if he'll be here next year.
Yeah, that's why.
Yeah.
But,
and what I was going to say is, off of that, so, we go back to whether it's genuine or robotic. Did you hear anything at the press conference and we get ready to bring in Kyle Nash from the Black and Gold Banterrette to kind of talk UCF, but kind of taking a step back, having a week, once again, he said they got better. And when he said that, I was like, oh, why did he say that? Because they got better in the spring. They got better in the fall. Then they didn't get better. And now he says they got better in the bye week. But was there anything else that you took from Monday that makes you think that coming off a bye week, having a chance to get healthy, which I didn't really think he was didn't seem that energetic about the health of the guys that he said, get a couple, but he wasn't really definitive, even though he's kind of hiding behind the availability report, which I don't have a problem with. But was there anything, Mr. Whitley, that you found that from Monday that says, okay, going into this UCF game, that they're going to be, it's an improved team, or,
Well, that's the problem, is that you don't, all you can go on is what he says, because we're not out there to see. And, Frank, I'm not sure if I was watching them what I would see, because they're playing each other. But, they did take, I think, the right approach to it, and that he said, well, it's going to be like, in the way boot camp, ones are going to play ones. It's going to be highly competitive. It sounded like he was trying to just reboot things real quickly. And, I'd say that would be better than just saying, it was business as usual out there. We just, did our thing. But I would have been surprised if he came out and had said anything else other than we really, we looking good with practice. Because I think he wants to believe that, whether it's wish casting or not. He's like, well, they look pretty good. So I'd have been surprised to hear anything else from him. But all we can do is take him at his word or not take him at his word, but the word is all we get. Right. And the players are going to say the same thing. Yeah, it was great out there. We had a lot of juice.
Right. Well, I mean, the question is, and we know what's brewing. You have the University of Central Florida Knights coming to town, and what could be a pivotal game for the historical ramifications of the Billy Napier area. And, and coming off the bye week, will they be ready? And with that, we welcome in Kyle Nash, the student of the game from the Black and Gold Banterrette. Kyle, how you doing?
Hey, thanks for having me in, guys. It's pure serendipity. I picked my grease hat when y'all are talking about Hellenist stuff and Stoicism and all that. Like, the pure coincidence of that is fantastic. I have to respect it.
Well, that's great, man. I had the opportunity to meet Kyle. We actually sat next to each other at the game on Saturday and got to talk a lot of football, got to learn a lot about each other. But, Kyle's somebody who is dialed into the University of Central Florida. But before we get into dialed in, I want to know how dialed in you are, because correct our audience. Are we saying UCF or are we saying Central Florida for the remainder of this show?
For your own protection, gentlemen, what I would recommend is UCF. Now, granted, it's a bigger crime in print if you put Central Florida. If you're speaking and you say Central Florida, typically you'll be safe. This is just what I've observed and been told. So there you go.
All right, appreciate it, Kyle.
And it's not Florida Technical University anymore.
No, this is funny. Back when they were first considering the name of UCF, such that it was on the table at one point, because they wanted it to be a technical university, like you talk about there, Dave, they had considered University of Florida Orlando, so it would spell out UFO.
Okay.
In real life, but there is a piece of communication somewhere where that was one of the suggestions. That's a thing that happened. So there's a little history for you, brother.
There we go. Well, it's good to have you, Kyle. And we talked on Saturday. We were both there. It would probably be safe to say that was a game that UCF thought that, they would come away with the win. But now they kind of turn, after not playing as well as they wanted to, obviously not running the ball as well as they were used to, and also turning the football over a couple times, one in the end zone. And then they had the RJ Harvey had a nice run that ended with a fumble in Colorado territory that could have turned the game. But now they turn their eyes to probably a game that they've had circled on the calendar for about 5 years or 6 years since Danny White scheduled it on his way to Tennessee, and they're looking to make the trip up the road. But for our listeners that don't know a lot about UCF and where they are as a program, kind of just give us a look into the glass, and then maybe where they may be coming off that Colorado loss.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about circling the calendar. I think one thing worth mention for that Gasparilla Bowl that was most recently played, the last matchup of UCF and the University of Florida, everybody was shocked that actually got to happen. That, wait, this is a thing? We weren't expecting this till 24. So, that's kind of how big a deal this matchup was, I think, is more stated by the shock that Florida was the opponent in that Gasparilla Bowl that just happened in Gus's first coaching year, right? But yeah, this game is huge. There's been a lot of hype around it. Heck, we even had a separate episode on the Black and Gold Banterrette's night shift podcast where we were debating whether or not Florida was the biggest game on the schedule. Now, I, with all due respect, I argued against it not being a conference game, but coming off of that loss, Loren, like just like you were talking about, makes it a bigger deal because not only does UCF have to kind of make this happen to get the 2 wins in a row against Florida in the Swamp, maybe they could start to maybe possibly peel that little brother tag off of things that UCF fans have heard for decades, right? Get in that general direction. I'm not saying it's going to be a quick rip of the Band-Aid, but you can start to tug on the edges just a little bit. Maybe, just maybe, they'll be seen as contemporaries here in the state of Florida.
That's great. I mean, and what was the mood after the Colorado? Because I argued with somebody actually on the way back from the game, is that they were saying, well, maybe they didn't take the Colorado game as serious because they had the Florida game looming. And I agree with you. You never overlook a conference opponent, because no matter what happens, if they would have beat Colorado and lose to Florida this weekend, they would have still been in, a tie for first place in the Big 12 and right in the driver's seat. RJ Harvey probably would still been in the Heisman conversation, things like that. But now you have this team that came off that. What was the mood, and what is the mood now going into it? Are they? I know they're not probably a fractured football team, but kind of a little wounded, maybe in the ego, that not only did they not run the ball as well, but I think everybody was shocked, ourselves included, at how well Colorado was able to run the football on Central Florida. And that could just be a one-off, but I'm sure it's something that they had to refocus their mindset on and almost make it purposeful coming into Gainesville.
Yeah, no, excellent take, right? And not just them, Loren, but remember nationally, right? Colorado was supposed to get destroyed, and I forget the name. I wish I remember the name of the personality, but like somebody was like, "How is UCF not ranked? They must be on drugs, right?" The ranking committee is on drugs, or the writers, because there is no committee yet. That's November, but you see where I'm going. Like the national hype, even back that UCF was supposed to smash Dion. And apparently that's not what happened, right? You mentioned that in particular. As an aside, too, by the way, if I'm an SEC fan and I see a school who was supposed to be good in the trenches suddenly struggle against Colorado, I'm thinking I got a chance, because the SEC is a tradition of being great in the trenches first and every playing inside out. I'm pretty sure that Georgia-Alabama game, making it to 75 points total, broke a law somewhere in some state. I'd have to look it up, but like that's not supposed to happen, right? That's not SEC football. And I think that's the element there too. But taking it back to it, there's no way, let's pretend that, this isn't to say UCF wasn't taking it seriously. We established that they had that circled, but Colorado was hyped so much. Everyone, A, gets hyped for Deion Sanders anyway, and B, with Fox noon kickoff coming to town, the first kind of national notoriety they hadn't seen since 2018 when ESPN's College Game Day came in, right? That was so big throughout the week. I can't imagine a scenario, especially in the NIL era, where getting the opportunity to be seen that much doesn't get guys hyped to put on a show. Unfortunately, it was Travis Hunter that did that part. But, I think that piece kind of takes the looking past a team off the table. Now, you want to accuse them of possibly reading too many headlines? I'll buy that. But for me, I don't think there was no element of a trap game per se there. No, I don't think. Gus Malzahn has too much respect for Deion Sanders to allow his team to do that. That's what I'll say.
Right. And Rob, you've been very outspoken, when we talked about this game, kind of looking at Florida's schedule and things like that. You mentioned the trenches, and you thought that no matter what, that's the one advantage Florida has. And I got to be honest, when I was watching it, I was like, man, if Florida can just lean on them and come with a solid game plan that features some misdirection with a smack in the face coming back at it, that Florida's really got a shot here, Rob, to take control on both sides of the ball because, and no offense to UCF, I'm just watching from 10,000 feet up in the air in the press box. They looked a little thinner than I expected from a Big 12 team that was supposedly one of the tops, or is still considered one of the top schools in rushing in the country.
Well, when you look at Gus, look at his record as a coach coming off of getting the hell beat out of his teams. It's very good. And at Auburn, I think Auburn people are going, he never had a losing season in 8 years there. And considering what Auburn football is and isn't right now, wow. Gus.
Excuse me, kind of like getting rid of a coach that went to 3 straight New Year's Six bowls, right?
Yeah.
but go ahead.
I think we got to be careful about throwing the babies out with the bathwater, when it comes to coaching. Kyle, you're really good. You're great. It's great. I mean, this is being an Auburn grad, you hear the term little brother. I mean, I have 2 boys and 2 girls. I don't know who. I think my youngest son, Max, I think is my toughest kid because he's the youngest of 4. I would not want to tangle with him. I think Gus, everybody wants to be around the guy. I'm from Memphis. I'm right next to Hughes, Arkansas. They've got the stadium named after him. In Arkansas, he's a rock star. Mm-hmm. It's going to be, you don't ever know what you're going to get out of Gus, but you will get a full 60. And that's just what his teams do. And if you are ever with him, talk about 2 personalities. He's kind of introverted, but he's also lethal as a recruiter. And he schemes. He's in there at 4:00 in the morning scheming plays. It's going to come down to the line of scrimmage, but I was shocked. We were down at the Auburn-Oklahoma game. I was in tears. I'm kidding. But I was shocked that Colorado beat Central Florida. That got me. I think UCF comes in here, and Gus is going to try to prove a point that he can run the ball, control the line of scrimmage. He's a mad scientist is what he is. He'll drive you crazy, but damn, the guy wins. Everywhere he goes, he gets a lot of attention.
Mr. Whitley, you got the Florida angle. So based on what you heard, and from what we heard from Billy and what we've seen, what does Florida take if you have that information, and then obviously what they're seeing on film, and I'm sure you saw bits and pieces of the UCF Colorado game if you didn't watch it. What does Florida do with that?
First, I want to tell Rob that if UCF played Auburn and UCF won, Hugh Freeze would say, well, they would beat him 9 out of 10 times, though.
Hey, by the way, David, we've got to go to Fayetteville Thursday. We're going to be up there as a guest. Uh-huh. We may be in the president's box. They're wanting us to sit there at Fayetteville. I'm going to say, for the record, you beat us. You were better than Auburn. I would never say that. And oh my God, that drives me crazy. I just had to say that because that's stupid. I'm just saying that.
Yeah. Anyway, well, I think Florida looks at it. They had to be, like everybody else, a bit surprised. So, and Kyle, you can answer this: is that assuming that UCF wasn't looking past Colorado and went out there and was playing, if not its A game, but at least mentally its A game, what should we take from the fact that Colorado was so successful? I mean, was this more of a true indication of that maybe Colorado or UCF isn't the Oklahoma of '74 rushing team that it was built up to be? I mean, is this more of a good gauge? I mean, how good do you think UCF's rushing attack is after seeing that? I mean, was this more provide clarity anyway? Or because people down here, they're grasping for any straw they can get to, and they said, well, yeah, I mean, they were running up those big yards, but 2 of them were against basically 2 cupcakes, and then they play a couple good teams, and Colorado can stop them. Maybe the Gators got a chance. I mean, did that change your way of thinking at all, or do you think that this was just a one-off?
Well, no, Dave, that's a great question. And kind of where I come from is this. It's a number of things. First of all, I can easily say this is probably one of the worst UCF offensive line performance I've seen going back into last year, right? And that's just part of the element. I think there's a bit, listen, Warren Sapp on that sideline as a coach has made an impact. That's one thing we can give a little credit to. Also, for all the trash we've talked on the Colorado offensive line nationally, they have started to get a little better in gel. We got to give them that much credit. I think this is also a good coaching job by Deion Sanders and his crew overall. Ted Roof, who is the UCF coordinator, said that when they came out with tight end looks rather than going full spread, that was something they had not necessarily prepared for. And then, so kind of then that means on both sides, then you're having some sort of deficiency. And what was it, fellas? You can't give the ball away 4 times in any football game. So your strength isn't as strong as it normally is. Granted, RJ Harvey still had 77 yards on the ground, still had a 75-yard wheel route, which gets set up by that run game, right? So it's not like they weren't productive. And he may have broken 100 had they not turned the ball over 4 times. I think we need to leave that on the table too. So I still think the running game is there. It's not moot, but you stop them by doing your best to kind of divert and take that off the table. I feel like Colorado came out, was able to punch them in the mouth better than anyone thought, and then use their skills where they were better and deeper at the skill positions, right? We could talk all we want about should be Heisman winner Travis Hunter, and we can have that debate later if you want. But then Joey Horn Jr. there is an excellent receiver as well. They have good corners. They should, with Deion recruiting him right. They took advantage there of the depth they had versus UCF being comparatively shallow at wide receiver, right? And I think that's where they capitalized at the end of the day.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think that was the biggest thing. I mean, you saw like, wow, they kind of sticking them, and you forget that, I mean, they had the Vanderbilt transfer receiver that made the great diving catch. You and I both looked and I was like, oh yeah, we forgot about him. And he had a big catch against Florida last season. And then you talk about Joe Horn Jr. and Travis Hunter, who, I think we both looked at each other and said, why is KJ Jefferson consistently throwing at Travis Hunter? That's about to get him in trouble. And I mean, he floated one to him, which I think he was trying to throw it away, and Hunter made a great athletic play on it. But, I think this really comes down to, we don't know what we're going to get in this football game.
Right.
And so with that said, we talk about RJ Harvey and KJ Jefferson, but give us a couple names that aren't household names. I mean, the return of Trent Whittemore, who a lot of people are familiar with, Gainesville's own, but there's I think they're decent tight ends, fairly decent. The kid who played tight end, a couple other receivers, guys that could make an impact if Florida chooses to say, hey, we're going to make someone other than KJ Jefferson and RJ Harvey beat us.
Yeah, absolutely. And I, as a quick aside too, we did mention Xavier Townsend up there in the booth. He's officially redshirted, so that's something the Gators won't have to work.
Oh wow, and that kid, he's good. That's one of the names I knew you were going to say. I was going to let you say it, but yeah,
I had to leave with that because I knew you were teeing me up. We were
right
together, Loren. But listen, as far as the running depth goes, too, RJ Harvey's not the only guy that could tote it. Penny Boone has been 1,000-yard receiver other places. The Miles Montgomery's hurt, the former Cincinnati running back, but they still have also Johnny Richardson to change things up and do a lot of speedy, kind of a change up from a power running game perspective, do a lot of gadget stuff that's incredibly scary when it works. In the name of the mad scientist Malzahn, as we said earlier, right, Dave? So with all that being said, I think the other places on defense, I think, are the bigger mentions too. The guys that have made this defense better up front than it was last year, where even the weakest runners of the Big 12 were slicing them up. And I'm referring specifically to, of course, Ricky Barber, Lee Hunter at the defensive tackle spot, backed by Ethan Barr. I think they are going to be essential defensively to put anything up there. When the battle starts in the trenches, gentlemen, you and I, all of us know that the key to a linebacker doing well is having good defensive tackles up front to take away the blockers. And then you have to be able to tackle a guy of size on your own to finish the job on the run. And that's what Ethan Barr does. And that's what UCF didn't have last year. So to not name his name defensively would be an absolute sacrilege. If you're looking for who may step up in lieu of Xavier Townsend, I mean, Trent Whittemore does his thing. I think he's kind of a possession guy. You mentioned Randy Pittman, who in a situation where they're trying to run outside and linebacker thinks he has a shot. Here comes Pittman, who's an excellent blocker and able to be a good valve on occasion when KJ Jefferson gets in trouble. And yeah, I mean, if I don't mention KJ Jefferson and what was done there in the past with Arkansas, I'm not doing my job. I'm not trying to pick out old wounds or anything like that. But I mean, him returning to the swamp is a factor here too. So I'd have to mention that.
Right. Well, pick at that wound all you want. We do.
Yeah, most hopefully it doesn't come down to getting the field goal unit out at the end and that kind of deal. We kind of gave that one away to Jefferson last year, but he does have a win in the swamp. So with and we talk about some of those things, Mr. Whitley, and I think Shamar James and Pup Howard, unfortunately, will not get the consideration they probably should as linebackers, simply because the defensive line tends to play in their lap quite a bit.
Yeah.
And, you hear those things and, the Billy Napier talked about getting better, but once again, he's never specific to what they got better at. Could this be a situation where the D-line finally decides to use their hands and play with low pad level to where they can allow those guys to run sideline to sideline, get downhill and get to RJ Harvey and Jefferson before they get ahead of steam? Or does get better mean we just get lined up right and we don't give up a touchdown with, I think it was 45 seconds left down in Starkville, when they're obviously throwing and we give up a post to a single high safety? I mean, there's so many things that they had a chance to get better at. But could that be the thing that they got better at to try and stifle this UCF running game?
Could be. Yeah, who knows? I mean, Billy, he just said, well, we need to be better, in technique, which is what you mentioned. So you figure that they worked on that, but you also figured they had been working on that, and it hadn't translated from Monday through Thursday to Saturday, which is seems to be if they got it, if they were rewarding playoff bids based on practices, based just on what Billy says, Florida would be a shoo-in, but they just never seem to carry it on to Saturday when it really counts. But yeah, I mean, the technique's been bad. And one thing that they can't cure in just a week, I think, is just the lack of depth and really just the lack of talent compared to most teams that they're going to play. And I would consider UCF at an equal at this point. Which that gets back to the little brother thing. If you'd have said even 5 years ago that UCF could line up and match Florida mano a mano, people are going like, oh yeah, no way.
I would be skeptical too, Dave. Just for the record, it's not just over there in that country. Us here in Orlando be like, hold up a minute, that's a bit much.
Right. Yeah, but now, sure, and I mean, part of that is that Florida hasn't kept ascending like Georgia and the other SEC schools, but I mean UCF has ascended to that level, and as Kyle said, they're tugging at that little brother Band-Aid. I think they tugged at it pretty well in the Gasparilla Bowl, but Florida had the excuse of Mullen's been fired, we had an interim coach, teams and just a lot of starters checked out, blah blah blah. But when I was over there for the Big Noon kickoff talking to people, and they said this time Florida has no excuse. They say, well we're struggling. Well that's not an excuse. Not in year 3 of Billy Napier.
Yeah, that's a fact.
Malzahn's in year 4, so it's not like this is Joe Paterno in 1968, at Penn State kind of thing. Well, maybe I should never use a Paterno reference. I take that back.
That's all right. We strictly football.
Yeah. Yeah. But I mean, there is no excuse. And if they go in a regular season and beat Florida in the swamp, that would be that would have to rank as one of the top 5 wins ever in UCF. If not, I'm thinking, you're going back to the New Year's Bowls at that point when they beat Auburn, and because even beating Auburn, on January 3rd, you didn't go back and sit in the cubicle next to Auburn alumni. This is one of those things where you have to live it year round if you're a fan, and because you work, chances are you're going to run into a lot more UCF and Florida people working side by side than anywhere else, especially in Orlando. A lot of Gators there,
right?
And just from an ego standpoint, they have a lot riding on the line this Saturday.
All right. Well, speaking of Florida Gators, we're going to talk about the Florida Gators' only official law firm, Meldon Law. We won't back down. And like I keep telling people, follow Meldon Law on your social media platforms. They always have really good ticket giveaways, things like that. If you have a legal issue, even something that they cannot necessarily help you with as a firm, they can point you in the right direction to get you going, whether it's estate planning or other issues that you may be dealing with. Meldon Law. We won't back down. So before we let you go, Kyle, you've been watching this thing. You've been watching both football teams, and to kind of just give us your prediction before we kind of let you get out of here, and just if you or not a prediction, but just where you think this thing could go before you get out of here. I mean, we gotta bless you right, and I mean everybody comes on and give a little prediction or kind of see how this thing is going. So what do you think?
And by the way, I'm not afraid to give you a prediction, and I allow you to make fun of me when it's wrong, but I will guarantee the chances of that is high. By the way, as a quick aside, one more name I should mention that I didn't yet is Kobe Hudson. If Florida's not looking out for him deep at wide receiver, then that play action is going to be a problem. I'm going to throw that out there. Just ask TCU, by the way. Anyways, as far as prediction go, the one thing I'll predict for those of you out there that are doing extracurriculars on the game, the under is the play. Just going to say that right now. I think everybody here will agree. But for me, this is going to come down. I think there's going to be an element of a sloppy game here. I think both sides at some point are going to get to the quarterback, probably cause a turnover at some point, and it's going to be who has more turnovers. I feel like based on what we're seeing so far, the chances of that being Florida simply because of the dual quarterback thing, and if they try to employ that, how well that may or may not go. And I'm with you, Loren. I'm a Mertz guy too. Let the kid sit a little bit longer and get right. He'll be good one day, But with all that being said, I have a relatively low scoring game. I think I'm going to go with 24-17 Knights, but you could just as easily flip that. Especially if they have another multi-turnover game, right?
Right. And with that, and the reason is with that is going to lead into our next segment. But with that said, in your mind then, and we'll let you play in on this and then we'll go on to discuss it. Is that the nail in the coffin from what you have observed with Florida, the loss to UCF?
I mean, it will be
Napier.
for me, but at the end of the day, to truly stop being little brother, it has to be acknowledged by the Gators fan base, does it not?
Well, I'm saying, is that the nail for Napier, do you think?
Oh, well, let's just put it this way. There's a history for UCF. Saban ended up being the guy that came in after Alabama's coach was fired after losing to UCF. I think it was Georgia Tech's coach that got replaced by Brent Key, was also fired after losing to UCF. Mullins, though we already knew he was fired, coached his last game against UCF. There's a pattern here, is what I'm telling you.
Right. Well, he didn't coach that game, but that was the end of summarily the end of the Mullen era. He's Kyle Nash, the student of the game, Black and Gold Banterrette. Appreciate having you on, man. Thanks, and I'll see you Saturday. Correct?
Yes, sir. I'll be right there.
Absolutely. Looking forward to it.
And until next time, as I say as a student of the game, class dismissed.
All right, sir. Thank you.
Love that. That is a great tag out.
Yeah, no, he's a good dude, man. We spend a lot of time together, and it kind of segues into what we want to talk about is this UCF game, from what you guys are hearing. I mean, either one of you chime in, but we've heard from different people that the next loss is the last loss. Now, I don't necessarily know that, because let's say the next loss is in Jacksonville to Georgia. I don't think they get fired. I don't think they fire him that night. But is this and I'm not speaking as somebody who's saying this needs to be done or anything like that. We're just talking in reality here. Is a loss to UCF, would that be the time that whoever is the powers that be, whatever you believe, big money boosters, board of trustees, Scott Strickland himself, I know the moaning would be strong, but is a loss to UCF at home the end?
I would have said yes, like a month ago, or maybe in a couple of weeks ago, but from what I'm hearing, kind of thing, I think it would have to be a close loss if he could survive. Anything more than a 10-point, if UCF goes out there and is obviously the better team, and Florida again just can't stop the ball and just gets run all over on defense, that would be it. I think that short of just an embarrassment, kind of a humiliating defeat, that they want him to play this thing out for a number of reasons. Because whether it was by design or just happenstance, they don't have any a good replacement. Galen Hall isn't waiting in the wings to take over this team, and they say, well, what about the excitement and the fans? Says, I don't think fans are going to be any more excited to see Dan Enos on the sideline than Billy Napier. I mean, there would be a sugar high to get so you get rid of the object of hate, in with him. But once you get past that, it would cause a lot of chaos around the whole team. And what I've been told is as long as they are still playing hard for him and they're not mailing it in, and they don't get embarrassed out there, that he will probably be string along. Or if they just if the wins just really like they're 2-2 now, if they're 2-7, he's gone. But I think that if he could get a couple of wins between now and November, this week, because I mean it would take this week is until you get to FSU. These only two teams they might be favored over. I mean that's assuming FSU still has a program in late November. At this point, I'm not sure it's going to even be the case. But from what I'm hearing, as long as they're still playing hard for him, and they're not getting like if they get if it's 55-17 at Tennessee, that might do it. If it's and humiliation, it's a sliding scale. If you lose by 13 to UCF, that's humiliating. If you lose by 13 to Georgia, that's not humiliating.
All right, so, that's a great effort. You put it out there. You played hard.
Yeah, because I just figured what you gain wouldn't be worth what you lose, and just the chaos it would cause in the building, and you really, what do you gain just putting in a caretaker? I mean, because recruiting is in limbo now, regardless of who's there.
Yeah. All right, Rob, what do you think?
I mean, it's over, and you're just playing kick the can, keeping him around. You're screwing up your recruiting. You're going to fall another year. You cannot afford to lose whatever you've got in recruiting. And the stock market hates uncertainty. The bond market hates uncertainty. You got to have a degree of certainty, okay? So I think if I'm Florida, the biggest boosters of Florida, I keep saying this, go to the president's office and say, all right, listen up. Listen up. I don't want to hear a word out of your mouth. We're tired of this cluster fudge down here, okay? The AD, you're not going to get a third chance to hire a coach here. Billy Napier, you're gone. Your president, who's now an interim president, he's not a leader. You've got to get the betas out of the room and bring the alphas in. And David's been covering Florida football a long time. He's extremely knowledgeable. So are you, Loren. And again, watching it as an Auburn man, Florida football is kind of a big-ass deal. If you lose to UCF, and they've got a good program, but damn it, you're the University of Florida. You cannot allow that. When you keep making excuses for mediocrity and stuff like that, you're going to get more mediocrity. You don't bring people from cultures where average and just, participation trophies are the thing of that you do. You don't bring them to Florida. You don't bring wimps to Paris Island. Florida deserves better. And Billy Napier I'm sure he's a very nice guy. I think his family's from North Georgia or East Tennessee, something like that.
little bit.
They all go to the same barber, it looks like. But I just say this much. Florida, you have to understand what a big deal Florida football is to people in Tennessee and all. We're looking at y'all now. There's no mayor here, so I can't point at Auburn because Auburn and Florida should get together for the Futility Bowl. And by the way, David and Loren, there was a sportscaster many years ago named Bob Burke. Memphis State back then was so bad. They beat Arkansas State, I think, the last game of the season, but there weren't enough people there to tear down the goalpost. They went like 1 in 10. And Bob Burks on the 5 o'clock Saturday afternoon news goes, we just received this notice here that he said Memphis State back then. Memphis State officials have accepted an invitation to play the Kentucky Wildcats in the Toilet Bowl in Flushing Meadow, New York. He was fired as soon as he finished his sportscast. Off the air, you're done. But look, it's
probably worth it to him.
I don't mean to be going crazy, but I'm just that Florida brand, Urban Meyer. I mean, what he said the other day. If you're going to be the running backs coach at Florida, you better be the best in America. Both of y'all, and I know David, you talked about Galen Hall. I remember him when he took over. And then Gary Darnell. But even after Charlie Pell, and that was a sad situation. And after having Ward Pell on the show a couple of years ago, she was one of the most I don't know if you've ever had her, Loren. I'm sure you know her, David. You may have met her. She was spectacular. You get inside a coach's wife's mind. But Florida just needs to get the alphas in the room, make the great hire, and move on, because now you're like someone who's on their deathbed. Florida football with Billy Napier, what is it? Is it the respirators on, the priest is in the room, they're calling the kinfolks to the bedside? Or is Billy Napier going to be Lazarus? It's nothing personal against him, but he is the coach of a $200+ million athletic program. And you can tell me about all these other sports, and they're wonderful. What makes the grass grow? Football. If your football's not in order, everything else is going to be okay. Who's won more championships in the SEC than Florida? I think the closest school is 112 behind them. Thank you, Franz Beard, for giving that. But Florida's won 267 SEC championships. When you start accepting mediocrity, you'll get mediocrity. Florida deserves better and has to take action. I mean, that's just my take.
Now, when we talk about and which moves into the next thing and kind of what we can finish on. So now we have a Ole Miss loss to Kentucky at home.
Yeah.
The wish list at the top of the wish list is Lane Kiffin. Now I could say that you put other guys' resumes up that some people are definite no's against Lane Kiffin's. I think you may get a better coach, but let's just play along for the masses. The masses want Lane Kiffin. You mentioned Dan Lanning, as an option, but just to say Lane Kiffin is at the top of the list and he's hot. Then goes out and loses and doesn't play great football against Kentucky. Kentucky goes into Oxford, gets a win. Is Lane, what keeps Lane at the top of the list if they underachieve and go 8-4? Is he still the guy? Is he still that guy? Or do losses like that against Kentucky and maybe some down the road, does that take the shine off Lane Kiffin, Mr. Whitley?
Yeah, I mean, what keeps him on the list is wins. But if they go 9-3 and don't make the playoffs, sure, the star will fade some, and fans say, well, maybe let's look a little closer at this, and maybe there's you look at his record against top 20 teams, and people start saying, all right, there are chinks here, and they'll just look at the next shiny object. Hey, Dan Lanning, and again, we're talking masses now. Reality wise, I don't think if Lanning wins the national champion or does great, I don't think he's going to come. He would consider coming. I think, he would be so hot, that he could wait NFL, whatever. I just don't think, he would have it. People talk about having it made. Lane has it made in Ole Miss. I think Lanning has it doubly made it. If you haven't made it Ole Miss, it's one. If you haven't made it Oregon, it's a little something else too, because that means you haven't made with Phil Knight. And so, but whoever it is, I think that list is going to fluctuate week to week. If Lane loses another next couple of weeks, the mass will say, oh no, let's, hey, James Franklin beats Ohio State, then it's like, hey, we got to get that guy. That kind of So that list is going to just be a roulette wheel for the next 2 months.
And I think a roulette. I mean, I'm gonna go to you, Rob, but I think a roulette wheel of maybe unrealistic wants and needs as well. But realistically, what we do have is Titan MRI, Gainesville, Lake City's newest MRI facility. Once again, they make you feel comfortable. If you don't have insurance, you can still go to Titan. They'll take care of you, make you feel good. They have the large MRI, because I'm severely claustrophobic. Had to get an MRI in college, and they literally had to drug me, put me to sleep. But I made it through. But now with Titan MRI, it'll be a lot more comfortable. And once again, Titan MRI serving Gainesville, Lake City, and surrounding areas. Rob, your thoughts on Lane or where Florida goes from here?
Well, here it is. I know these Ole Miss people really well, and they're still going. Browne, Auburn and Alabama and Florida, y'all are like you described. I always say that those programs I just mentioned are like the Spartans, the 300. We want to win every game. Okay, that's all we ask for. It's not everything. Ole Miss people, a lot of my friends are like, man, we just want to have a good time, see what happens. Here's what's on trial this weekend in Columbia, South Carolina. Lane Kiffin has 25 guys on the portal. Ron Higgins was on the show this morning, great sports writer at the Shreveport Bossier Journal down in Baton Rouge. He covers LSU, and he was in Memphis a long time. He knows the SEC. He made a good point. You can't just instantly gel 25 new guys in the portal to your program. So what I think's on trial this weekend is Lane Kiffin and his philosophy of building with the portal versus as much high school as you probably would like. If they go to Columbia and get boat raced, it's going to change the way a lot of people. You know what Lane Kiffin's record is against teams that finish the season with 9 or more games? 3-20. Okay, we know about bad cycles. 1997 to 07. Alabama, in that 11-year period, which includes the first year of Nick Saban, 8 times they lost 5 games or more. Mal Moore was sent by the Alabama people. We knew it in Memphis because it was the talk of the Christmas parties that Saban was coming to Alabama. Trust me. We knew that. We were like, when are they going to announce it? Mal Moore was told, don't come back without him. Like the old Carl Malden, remember, David, the American Express card?
Don't leave
home without it. Well, Lauren's old enough to remember. But,
oh, yeah.
But I just think Lane Kiffin, how were they not prepared for Kentucky? You can tell Lane Kiffin or other schools are talking to him, or maybe they're mutually doing it because his teams get distracted. It destroyed their season in 2022 when Auburn and Kiffin were playing footsie. Florida, that Ole Miss they've got money. That's it. But what Florida can sell, man, Florida's like a big bonfire that you have on a big, camping trip down on the beach. Everybody passes out drunk that night, wake up about 6 o'clock the next morning, and you go blow on those coals. It doesn't take much to get that fire going. That's Florida football. So somebody out there, Dan Lanning, you should have heard Ryan Silverfield, the Memphis football coach at the Touchdown Club last night. Lanning's one of his best friends. He talked about how many times he got turned down for jobs. He wanted the Kansas job. He's from Olathe, Kansas. He didn't get that. He didn't get several jobs he went after, and he ends up at Oregon. You never know, but I'll tell you one thing, just looking at it neutrally, if I were Lane Kiffin, my ass would be down in Alachua County. And I would be talking to the alpha male boosters at Florida, and I'd be saying, look, y'all going to let me fish when I want to go fishing and stuff? But I know he's got his kids moving in and building houses. I heard the same stuff from one of Hugh Freeze's good friends at Liberty. They just built him a new house, and he's got this new contract. I said, let me tell you something. When that 334 area code from Auburn, Alabama comes through, he's going to pick up the phone, just like Vern Lundquist said at the Masters on that great putt by Jack Nicklaus in 1986. Yes, sir. That's the thing. David, y'all know this about Florida. And I'm not saying this just to say it. I get fired up. Ole Miss they've made it a great job. If they don't win Saturday, people are going to start saying, man, they're supposed to have had everything. They're supposed to check every box this year, and they didn't get it done here. This is the biggest game Ole Miss has played in memory because of the repercussions and what can happen at Florida too. That's just how I see it.
Right. So, gentlemen, as we finish, I got to write an article later in the week, so I'll kind of play Kirk Herbstreit, but I am going to probably end up picking Florida to win. But David Whitley, the floor is yours. What's your prediction for this weekend?
After seeing that Colorado game, I got to go. I hadn't really thought about a score, but I guess
come on.
Yeah, I'll go Gators just because I think this may be the last chance I can utter those words until November 25th.
You got a score or no?
Yeah, I think it would be 27 to. Yeah, I can't see anybody scoring less than 20 points on that defense. I go 27-24.
Okay. What you working on this week outside of preparing for the big UCF game?
Oh, well, that's all it is. It's tunnel vision right now. It's all got to be Billy and what this means and who, and the unknown, many unknowns, like what impact this will have. And a lot of this is it's just like, this is like the next act in a will it be a 12-act play or a 4-act play? Yeah, we shall see.
Rob Browne, what you got?
I'm going to say this. UCF, Gus coming off of a loss, comes in and plays a hell of a game, but there's one problem I have with Gus. He doesn't recruit offensive linemen because that system he runs doesn't get them ready for the NFL. And I might be wrong. There's always that chance. But I think Florida, because of the line of scrimmage, can get the win. I would pick Florida in this one, even if the game were in Orlando, because it's all about the LOS. And you know what? Cost is only an issue in the absence of any added value. Whatever you got to pay to get the best coach at Florida, spend the money. Don't be like Mr. Krabs on SpongeBob SquarePants, and be cheap. I tell you what, you can't be cheap and get anything good. It's going to be a fun one, but I'm going to pick Florida to win 19-18.
Oh, wow.
A real thriller.
All right, so with that, I'm going to leave you guys with this. So a couple things. So tomorrow, this guy turns 51 years old. Can you believe that?
You?
Yeah, 51.
Congratulations.
Big 5-1. And I want to give a shout out to my girl, Kelly Ray Finley, the head women's basketball coach at the University of Florida. Women's basketball started practice this week. Go check them out. We're going to have some of the girls on a little bit later during the season and into the winter. I like your coach, too, Miss Johnny at Auburn. She's a good one.
I do, too.
So, yeah.
I do. Johnny Harris.
She's a good
cool
one. Yeah, but we're going to say goodnight. Appreciate having you guys on. David Whitley of the Gainesville Sun. Rob Browne, SEC Sidelines, Monday through Friday, 8 a.m., right? 9 a.m. Eastern. Correct?
8 a.m. Central.
Eastern. 8 a.m. Central.
Hey, thanks for letting me share this with y'all. It's an honor always.
Appreciate it, guys. Thank you so much.
Good night.
All right.